Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, shapes, and forms, before we get started with today, I'd like to let you know that we totally fucking lied on this fanfiction. That is actually smut. There's fluff in it, but there is smut in it too, so just a warning, please put the kids to bed before you're allowed to have fun reading this fic. You've been warned. How's it going, Mick?
Good.
Welcome back to another edition of Fanfiction Theater. You doing good today? Oh, dude, get that finger good. So, on Tuesday, we read a steamy, extremely steamy fanfiction of Akechi and Akira. It was fan-fucking-tastic. It was beautiful.
That was pretty good, actually. Real well written, too.
Fuck yeah, it was. It was awesome. So, today, you guys saw the PSA before, but this is actually a smut. 5,000 words. So we are going to die, but we're going to read this back and forth together. So this is another Persona 5 fanfiction. This is with Akira and Yusuke.
Yeah, the Fox Boy.
The Fox Boy.
The cute Fox
Matthew Mercer and Xander Mobius. Is it Mobius
I thought
or
it was Mobius?
Is it Mobius?
I thought it was Mobius.
Hey, somebody tweet to Xander and be like, hey, Xander, is it Mobius or Mobius?
Well, because if you see his last name, it's M-O-B-I-O-U-S, right?
There's an I in it? Okay, if there's an I, then it's Mobius.
Anyway.
Sorry, Xander. If you're watching this right now, I wish to hear you as Dr. Roman in Fate Grand Order. Fate Grand Order should come to Toonami so that I can hear Xander Mobius.
A one-episode anime.
It was only one episode?
Yeah, it was just...
I thought it was a whole series!
No, that's why it only took 30 minutes to watch at the panel, dude. It's only one episode. It's supposed to show the beginning of Fate Grand Order. You know how, like, in the game, you do the first... You go to Fuyuki? That's it. That's what it shows. But if they get enough budget... Because they left it open for another episode. It's like an OVA, dude.
Well, then.
They left it open for another one, though.
This is neither here nor there with what we're about to read today.
Anyway.
But anyway. So, the name of this fanfiction is called Lawless, Winged, and Unconfined.
Alright.
By 2 divided by 0. Oh shit, they divided by 0. Oh no.
With 2.
Alrighty.
Alright, ready?
So, should we read the summary like we've done before, or just dump right on into it and jump right into it?
Did we read the summary of the last one?
Yeah, I think we did.
Alright, you read it.
Love works a different way into different minds. The fool it enlightens, and the wise it blinds. In everything, Yusuke was used to excellence. He was Madarame's student, a scholar student at Kosei.
Yes.
I always want to make sure.
Scholarship student at Kosei.
Scholarship student at Kosei. So the thought of failing, much less at something like sex with his boyfriend, was terrifying. But if there was anything artists were universally renowned for, it was their creativity. Growing up as Madarame's pupil in, well, squalor, there were certain parts of Yusuke's education that fell by the wayside. Is it derivation?
I guess.
Derivation?
I don't know. Anyway.
Derivation is statistics. Who needs that when there's perspective and proportion? Foreign literature? All they need to know is how to grunt and appropriate responses to praise Madarame's painstakingly scripted. Fuck me. I'm gonna take that back. Foreign literature? All they needed to know was how to grunt the appropriate responses to praise that Madarame painstakingly scripted for them. They were his children. How were they to know any different? Father knows best. Except when they got older and learned. Then they just left. Up to this point, well, really, up to facing down the ugliness thriving within the man he called father, Yusuke had never seen any faults with this. So what if his math skills were atrocious? He went to Kosei. No one cared as long as he kept producing prize-winning pieces. At showings, he was very comfortable with "thank you" and "my master is a true artist, and I am blessed to be his pupil." And then, when he saw a beautiful girl walking alongside the road, then he saw a beautiful girl walking alongside the road. Though it made the thin gruel in his stomach curdle, he forced her to be his. Oh, I know what it is. He forced her to be his nude model. He had always been taught to view naked bodies as simply another subject, nothing to be ashamed of. To see her and her group's obvious agitation, those were the first signs something was wrong. I'll let you read the next part.
After that, it felt as though life went into fast forward. Phantom thieves? Personas. As he stood there, Goemon proudly at his back, Yusuke will never forget that with the birth of Fox came another birth. Joker looked at him, even through the mask, and told him to show all that he could do. Something coiled in his belly then, small and weak, but it purred every time he felt Joker's eyes on him in battle. It wasn't until later he realized, quite stupidly, that he was attracted to their leader in more than just an aesthetic sense. Well, fuck, but not really Yusuke, well, fuck, but not really, but Yusuke had no idea how that would even begin to work. So, Kitagawa. Oh, it was that shogi player that Akira spoke with. Poor girl, with the whole scandal on her mom and... Oh. How are you, Miss Togo? She giggled and tucked a piece of her frankly gorgeous hair behind her ear. With all the layers, Yusuke could already visualize the way he'd portray it. Oils, definitely. With perhaps some... You aren't really listening, are you? There was no use lying. One good lesson from Madarame. No, I was not, and I apologize. What were you saying? Once again, she gave that weird girlish titter that made him feel as though he was being left out of a joke. Oh, I was just asking how things with Akira were going, using his first name. We are meeting at the station to grab coffee later. Then more suspiciously, why? No reason. I just noticed he hadn't been spending much time at the church lately and was curious. There was a certain intonation, a certain twinkle to her eyes. If the metaverse had taught him anything, it was that people were prone to say one thing while meaning something completely different. He began cautiously. He's been helping me on my next art submission. I decided to focus on the theme of longing. Is that so? She lilted. Nothing more racy in nature? Well, longing generally tends to imply a longer period of I think I see now. She chirped, and Yusuke could understand in moments like these why so many boys were infatuated with Hifumi Togo.
I'm afraid I don't. She just smiled teasingly and trolled her errant piece of hair. Just don't keep him waiting forever, alright? That boy loves you, you know? Two things about that last statement shook Yusuke to his very core and caused some uppity first year to gripe loudly about moving it or losing it. 1. Their up until now secret relationship was obviously not as secret as they hoped. 2. What was she? Oh. He started small. Google search on public libraries, sneaking peeks in bookstores. Ryuji already called him a pervert, so no harm done to his reputation. There were diagrams and labels to parts of his own body he never knew, and he studied anatomy. He looked at men oiled up and clearly posing for pictures. The innocent scholared boys. The rebels. It was like a whole new world. But the thought of him there, he thought of Joker. Akira. It would hurt. You might be bad at it. Who's a virgin anymore? It was scary. Scary to consider sex. Scary that his inadequacies might. But it was also scary facing down his foster father, being told that his mother was allowed to die for profit. Who stood by him that whole time? It was terrifying, but... Oh boy, here we go. Do you want to have sex with me? I'll let you.
Behind the counter, Akira froze and instantly flushed a rather alluring shade of Charisse? From the booth, though. Okay, seriously, Inari? You think, I'm just gonna proposition my boyfriend the second I walk in the door and not check if there's anyone else here? Just... Akira managed to pull himself miraculously together enough to drop his cloth and walk over to Futaba's booth. Still, he was red. Now, luckily, Boss wasn't here. My ears were here, though. I had to listen to that beanpole over there ask for the D, and now I can never hear it, Akira.
That's amazing.
He shushed her before placing a... What? Please? What's that word?
Placing
a...
Placating hand on her shoulder. There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Dramatical murder.
Okay, I'm reading that next line. That is some gold. That is some gold. Oh my god. Alright, here we go.
Okay, where am I? Where are we at?
We'll start with,
Oh, no.
he shushed her before placing a placating.
That's right. Okay. He shushed her before placing a placating hand on her shoulder. You said you wanted to read this line.
Nice try, but Morgana ratted you out on playing dramatical murder. He's a dog, Futaba.
It's more than that, you uncultured.
Yusuke watched, amused, as Akira leaned over to bop the girl on the nose. You fuck the dog. That's awesome.
At that moment, her face matched her hair. The awful clashing colors caused Yusuke's inner artist to wince. Yeah, well, you want to fuck Foxboy, so I guess we're even.
Damn. With that, she slammed her laptop shut and stormed clumsily towards the door. One of them is legal, sweetheart. Be safe walking home. She purposefully elbowed into Yusuke on the way out, gave them both the middle finger, and slammed LeBlanc's door. That sounds like something Futaba would do. I haven't even gotten to her after her palace yet, but I feel like that is something she would do.
Yep.
Once the bell on the door jangled, Akira's expression completely shifted. He was still red to the tips of his ears, still leaning on the grimy table, but the smolder in his eyes has Yusuke's knees visibly trembling. He was a sailor, trapped by the siren's song, and his beautiful siren crept ever closer to the doorway. He could feel his hands clenching tighter around the bag, and the bag held behind his back. Could Akira hear it? The way his heart raced? How did he ever think that he could capture this emotion, the desire on canvas? I think Akira-kun, as Yusuke's knees finally gave out, then maybe we should talk upstairs. Yusuke was honestly surprised that he had brain power left to nod. Here you go, man.
Okay. Talking ended with him completely shirtless and Akira very determinedly trying to mark every single inch of skin that would be exposed in his thief outfit. And succeeding, of course. Jerk. But oh, a jerk with talented tongue and teeth. Yusuke never even knew his neck could be that sensitive. So, Akira cooed during a break from sucking yet another love bite behind his ear. Who put it into your head that we needed to have sex? It was tempting to falsely implicate Futaba just then. It isn't like they were oblivious to what she was really up to, hunched over that laptop. No one really. Isn't it just part of a natural progression of relationships? I suppose. But the way Akira circled him, sizing him up like prey, didn't quite match the sentiment of his words. The bag behind his back suddenly contained the weight of the world. Was I incorrect? Oh no, not at all. In fact, you saved me a lot of work. What? The shoulder returned full force, and Yusuke understood in that instant how every single person he met fell at least a little in love with Akira. The boy had a way of looking at you, making you feel like you were the greatest treasure a Phantom Thief could ever want to steal. And oh, did he want. Inspecting his nails and faux nonchalant, Akira idly commented, You know, Sojo left LeBlanc to me for the evening, and there aren't exactly any customers. I'm sure if we close early to talk more upstairs, he'd be none the wiser.
Maybe Joker really could cast
Marin
Karin in the real world, because, against all his better judgment, Yusuke's feet plodded step after step right into the spider's lair. Willingly. Prim as ever, Yusuke sat with his hands flat on his knees, tush firmly planted on Akira's bed, as his boyfriend held up the contents of the bag he had brought. It's a blindfold. That earned it another strange look, as though Akira secretly suspected it was something more risque, like a stolen pair of Anne's lingerie. And you want free to use it on me during sex. The way Akira continued to eye the strip of fabric like a foreign object made Yusuke nervous. I want to have sex with you. I mean, that is, if you should already know my answer. That's what he said with a heart-stopping smile that reminded Yusuke that all this embarrassment was worth it. That is, take your time, hon. Inhale, exhale. I think it would be easier for me to, well, if I can't see, Yusuke, you don't have to force yourself. I'm not, he shouted before smirking back into himself a bit. I want to be with you. I do. I just feel more comfortable if you took control of it all. This kind of hits me at home a little bit.
Yeah?
I'll tell you more off camera. Mm-hmm. Your turn. I'll let you read this next set.
Okay. They stared each other down for a solid moment before Akira broke eye contact to run his fingers through his hair. Stupid sexy. Do you even realize the things you do to me? No? Akira scoffed, obviously. Before joining Yusuke on the futon, he quickly leaned in to give his boyfriend a sweet kiss on the nose before rocking back and adopting a sharper expression. Times like these, Yusuke was reminded that Joker wasn't merely a role played in Netaverse. He was every bit a part of Akira as the shy, sweet boy he fell for. It was disconcerting, to say the least. He felt Akira's hands gently wrap the fabric over his eyes, felt them knot the fabric in a neat bow, and suddenly his world went black. It was nigh impossible to resist the urge to reach up, to paw at the fabric and bring back the light. Everything felt so much more, even without his eyesight, but he missed his lover, missed Akira. But he didn't. It was tempting, but he held off. Rather, he distracted himself by marveling how something so thin and fragile could completely blind him in such a way. Sweetheart, if we're going to do this, I need you to think of a safe word.
Ooh.
Behind the blindfold, Yusuke blinked. Safe word? From everything I read, those were primarily used in bondage situations, and Akira shushed him with a sweet peck. Sweetheart, love, can you do that for me? I need you to answer me honestly. He hummed and thought. Everything you read? Another unseen blink, and a flush. Yes. Do you trust me? Instantly, with my life. He was rewarded with a light nip to the lower lip and a nuzzle to the cheek, allowing him to feel Akira's smile. That's not what I'm asking, love. Do you trust me? With his body, with his safety, with his heart, the answer remained exactly the same. Yes.
Wow. This is
really nice.
This is really well done. Mm-hmm. Now he felt hands trail lower, fingers caressing over the slight hint of abs. Now, and answer me honestly. Are you nervous? Those fingers dipped into his belly button as he writhed. Apparently his body berating him was enough for an affirmation from Akira. His fingers stopped creeping lower and instead began massaging soothing circles into his belly that both tickled and made his gut flutter with nervous butterflies. We need a safe word, love. Humor me. As if he could say no. Alright. You know how this works then? He didn't need to see to know Akira was smirking on top of him. Well, then we need a word that you would never, under any normal conditions, say during sex. In a surprising bout of clarity, Yusuke came up with a brilliant idea. Morgana. It took a few moments for Akira blinking dumbfoundedly, finally dropping the sexy facade for his mind to catch up. Thankfully, it was enough of a distraction to keep Akira from any of his ministrations. Morgana is your safe word. My cat is your safe word. There's no feasible situation in which I would ever call Morgana's name if you're serving as proper distractions. That earned a pleasant purr. Oh, is that a challenge, Mr. Kitagawa? And suddenly, those naughty fingers were everywhere at once, and it was exciting and terrifying, and with the blindfold on, everything was... So, Mr. Kitagawa, tell me. Akira's voice drawled from what somewhere in the vicinity of the... hold on. Akira's voice drawled from somewhere in the vicinity of a curl of his neck. What are you thinking right now? Absolutely nothing. That was the wrong answer if the hum of his throat was any indication. Somehow I doubt that, love. Are you nervous? Not knowing where those mischievous hands would end up next? Yes. That earned him a brief kiss on the tip of his nose, and his soothing circles were back on his abdomen. That's good. Well, not the nervousness, he chuckled. But the honesty. Honesty is good. Now that his hands were on his chest, now there were hands on his chest, massaging his pectorals. It was sensual, even as his nipples were ignored. It was both appreciating and frustratedly that Yusuke realized his boyfriend was making a concerted effort not to touch them. The feeling was new and a little confusing. Okay, so you're nervous. That earned a pause. Why? It was suddenly difficult to swallow around the lump in his throat. Because, oh no, did he just stutter? God, he was embarrassed. Why would such a beautiful creature like Akira shackle himself with an embarrassing virgin? He nipped his ear. A nip to the ear brought him back to reality. I can hear your thinking, sweetheart. I apologize. No need to apologize. Akira purred. An affectionate cat pressed up against the entirety of his body. Even the skin still covered by cloth burned. Just tell me what it is you're so scared of. I never said I was scared, he snipped. I said I was nervous. Ah, I'm sorry, love. What has you so nervous? Yusuke paused, just appreciating the weight of Akira lying on top of him. Those mysterious treasure-swiping hands continued massaging the muscles of his upper chest. He didn't feel any of the expectation of anxiety at all. I'm a virgin. Akira hummed without lifting, moving at all.
They probably forgot that word.
I've never. You were my first kiss. Yusuke began to fret. All my life, I have been heralded as a genius and a savant. I've never truly been bad at anything, and you, and me, I don't want. You know I'm a virgin too, right? Yusuke felt Akira pull away from his neck and wanted to plead, no, come back. In fact, you were my first kiss too. Not too bad for your first time, I might add. Even blindfolded, Yusuke knew Akira was smirking. Likewise, Akira no doubt knew he was rolling his eyes. So, sweetheart, what invisible standards are you holding to yourself that doesn't even exist? But I've seen them. Oh? Yusuke made his best attempt to bury his face into the lumpy imitation of pillows on Akira's futon. I've seen the way that others look at you, Makoto, Han, Haru, Ryuji, he mumbled angrily into the fabric. What could I possibly offer you that they couldn't be better at? All weight except his hips suddenly left, leaving Yusuke feeling cold and frightened at the involuntary desire to sit up and follow. I thought it might be something like this. And suddenly the world was full of color again. The first thing Yusuke saw once the blindfold was removed was the disheveled Akira seated on his hips and holding the thin strip of material. I'll let you continue reading because my throat's a little dry.
And then he made the mistake of looking at himself and wondering what in the world Akira saw in him. Pasty skin, blotchy from the full body flesh of both Why did you drink all my water?
I'm going to get you more water, don't worry about it.
A blush of both embarrassment and arousal. Concave stomach, visible ribs. What about any of this? I can hear you thinking again, Akira chided, and don't you dare apologize. Now this right here is a gift, from me to you. Darting his still dazed eyes this way and that, the artist remained confused. I don't. It's a collar, and I want you to put it on me.
Whoa! Oh.
Clearly he heard that wrong. Rather than react, Yusuke stayed planted beneath Akira's muscular thighs and stared in confusion. His poor, ever-suffering boyfriend eventually heaved a great sigh. Here, give me your hands. As he silently obliged, Akira took each hand and cradled them to his face. He placed a feather-light kiss to each palm, nuzzled each callus, and put the thin strip of leather into Yusuke's hands. Slowly, gently, he was guided on how to wrap the collar around and clasp it in the back. Even after Akira released his hands, he kept stroking the fine leather. It was a symbol of ownership over this beautiful man, and a sick part of Yusuke basked in the knowledge that he is mine. Under Yusuke's appreciative gaze, Akira preened. You like it then? You know, I normally say there is no such thing as a stupid question. His boyfriend chuckled warmly and picked the blindfold back off the futon. So now that we've addressed that little worry, I would like to show you exactly why none of those other worries should ever cross your mind again. All it took was a nod and the world went black again. Gentle hands guided his own to the collar around Kira's neck, a silent reminder of possession, before slipping beneath his rear and hoisting him onto Akira's lap.
Ooh.
It was awkward at first, but eventually they worked it out so Akira was sitting upright with Yusuke perched on his lap. Once more in the darkness, Yusuke couldn't help the tiny bit of trepidation tickling his heart. He tugged weakly at Akira's shoulders, a plea for a kiss, and was obliged instantly. For what felt like hours, they just sat there and kissed while exploring each other. It was always a surprise where Akira's hands ended up, but not necessarily a bad one.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. His neck, his shoulders, the curve of his spine, and throughout it all, Akira kissed him through his entire body, steadily melting into goo. You're so beautiful, love, Akira cooed at one point. I wish I could see yourself now. You're so sexy. Despite, well, everything, Yusuke managed a weak mixture of a chuckle and a whine. He's sexy? You are many things, Akira Kurusu, but I never expected a bad liar was one of them. Oh, is that so? Now the fingers were woven into his hair, pulling him into a kiss that was more tongue and saliva than sweetness. It left his knees even weaker, and in the black of the fabric, Yusuke was seeing stars. Yusuke, Akira chided, just a little breathless and husky. Are you saying I'm wrong? What? No! Then you admit it. Admit what? That you're sexy, he purred. That you are attractive, sensual, erotic. Even without seeing, Yusuke could feel the inch of a blush creeping up his neck and down to his chest, earning an appreciative coo from Akira. If there's anyone such saying such things that should be said about, it's you. You're... When his words failed, he reached blindly toward where he hoped Akira's face might be. Two guiding hands led him to that lovely face, but he dragged them lower. Through their proximity, he felt Akira gasp in realization before sighing fondly. And most importantly, for better or for worse, I'm all yours.
You want to read the next part?
Yeah, I was gonna. Oh, you gonna read it? Yeah.
I still don't. His voice trailed off, full of wonder, while his fingers idly traced the collar. Use your words, sweetheart. Akira tilted his head just enough to press a quick kiss on the nearest palm. I still don't understand why. He choked a little on his insecurities. Why me? Silly little fox. There was a sudden onslaught of hands and lips, what felt like everywhere. Fingers gripping the meat of his thighs, nips on what felt like every exposed piece of skin. It was sensory overload, and Yusuke couldn't help but moan weakly under the attention. Between the particularly insistent suck on the base of his clavicle, Yusuke felt his boyfriend smirk. Am I honestly going to have to go over every single reason I find you the sexiest person to have ever crossed my path? The blush from before, it now easily extended to the tip of his ears, if not the very roots of his hair. Maybe. Oh wow, he didn't always sound that breathy. Maybe it was an abridged version? If you insist, then let's start. There was a sudden fingers laced over his own. They massaged and squeezed, easing the tension built up by painting and sketching day in, day out. These hands? I love these hands. I've seen them create beautiful art, but also handle a katana like a true warrior. These hands, he squeezed twice, are some of the strongest I've ever seen. Yet, they're still capable of creating such beautiful artwork. I love every single favor, every single callus of these hands because they're proof that you can be both fierce and beautiful. It was then Yusuke felt a kiss pressed up on the topic of every single fingertip. Akira, hush, sweetheart, I'm not finished. Warm breath on his neck soon caused goose flesh to rise. It was so tempting to flinch away, but his fingers soon softly stroked the other side, up and down, up and down. It was calming, almost hypnotic. Sorry. It was calming, almost hypnotic, and Yusuke felt, this is what he felt. Yusuke felt just a little more under his boyfriend's carefully woven spell, or fell under his boyfriend's carefully woven spell. I love how responsive you are. To prove a point, Akira kissed the corner of his chin lightly just before blowing on it. See? Even something as small as that, you're breaking out into goosebumps. You're so sensitive. I told you I was new to all this. New, yes, but this... His voice dropped to an almost growl. Everywhere I touch is like... I can't even describe it. The way your body reacts makes me feel like the sexiest man alive. An ego rush alone. It was then Akira shifted his legs just enough to press them chest to chest so Yusuke could feel what he meant. That itching feeling of blood rushing to his neck, his face, his ears, only got so much worse, feeling what could only be Akira's erection pressed against his stomach. His face burned and butterflies in his stomach danced. Sweetheart. Darling. Oh, Akira was talking. Yes? And oh god, his voice was so breathy it was almost sounded drunk. Yes? Are you still doing alright? Your turn? So why wouldn't I be?
Why wouldn't I be? Akira gave a slight buck of the hips and... I think I'm still fine for now. Once more, he felt more than saw Akira nod. Good, that's good. You're doing great, love. Now... His nipples certainly weren't neglected this time, as Akira's wandering hands came down to run over his pectorals. The shock of it all had his squirming and whining. Oh, you're sensitive here, Yusuke nodded weakly, embarrassed by his body's betrayal. There was a warm gust of air in his ear. Can I tell you a secret? Of course, Yusuke whispered back, feeling stupid immediately afterwards. There was no point in whispering. It wasn't as though there was anyone around to hear. Lines were traced and scratched across his chest, and it left Yusuke's head swimming. I love your thief outfit. I have fantasies about it, you know? Really? Smooth, Yusuke. Such a weirdo, so inexperienced, stuttering at a time like this. I think about your costume as Fox a lot, actually, Akira murmured, while he nosed above his chin without once halting those devious hands. About covering your neck in so many love bites that you can't possibly cover them up. Pulling down the zipper of your jacket, about just grabbing you by the labels?
Yes.
Lapels, and the temptation must have been too much to resist, as Yusuke had his very wits French kissed out of him without any warning. It was easier to follow Akira's lead without being able to see, and he was eventually able to reciprocate clumsily, but with equal passion. They separated with a wet smack, and that noise combined with all the attention, and Akira still hadn't stopped his hands at all. Despite his best efforts to hide it, Yusuke knew the exact moment Akira realized he was hard. Even after all that, he was still so embarrassed, and there was plenty of time to screw this up, and who wanted an awkward virgin like him? Sweetheart, darling, I can't help you if you don't talk to me.
This is... Instantly, all fondling stopped. Do you want to stop? Look, no, of course not. That was the first and only time Yusuke had ever heard Akira unsure of himself. He gave a weak laugh and gentle weight rested up on his hips. Good, because to be honest, I'm not sure how much good a cold shower would do me at this point. Experimentally, Yusuke gave another squirm, just enough to... Suddenly, it was impossible to stop rocking up against Akira's thighs. Those hands, his leader's hands, held him steadily as he wantonly ground into Akira's muscular thigh. He masturbated before, when he was a young man. He was still a young man. He masturbated before, he was still a young man. Still, though, it was hard to find something that piqued his interest. Faceless women with bountiful chests struck him more as an artistic subject than erotic. Masturbation almost felt like a chore that needed to be done in the morning. like brushing one's teeth. Then an experience his classmates gushed over in quiet whispers. It was in that moment Yusuke understood what those strong, beautiful hands pulled him away. It was in that moment that Yusuke understood, and when those strong, beautiful hands pulled him away, he could have cried at the injustice of it all. He could feel Akira trying to placate him with soothing words and sweet kisses, but all he could do was whimper at the injustice of it all. Shh, darling, you're doing okay. Just calm down. You're all right. But he didn't feel all right. His body was crying out for something he didn't entirely understand, and it left him reluctantly pawing at the blindfold. Once more his hands were held and kisses pressed to each palm. It didn't entirely quell the feeling building in his gut, but it did ameliorate the anxiety a bit. It was slight, but Yusuke felt the sneaky hands tug ever so slightly at the hem of his pants. Just that tiny suggestion of more became the font of babbling that seemed without end. I've tried practicing penetration with toys, that is. Once I realized that I wanted to be with you. I did some research. At first it was painful. I couldn't even hun. But it was for you, the artist assured. So I kept trying. Even when it hurt, I knew I wanted to be with you. Then, you? And then, you? Akira moved even further this time, and Yusuke could hear the shuffle of blankets being rearranged. Something soft fell to the floor. A pillow? But all his mind registered was he was leaving me after all. He's leaving me after all. He's leaving. It felt like rejection, cold and painful. At the very least, he knew he wouldn't cry. Just when he braced for the inevitable disgust and rejection, a warm arm wrapped around his belly, pulling insistently until he lay on his side. From what he could gather, Akira lay in front of him. Honestly, it was a mini miracle such a ramshackle piece of furniture could hold one grown man, much less two. A finger pushed an errant piece of hair that had fallen in front of the blindfold behind his ear. It was sweet and touching, but Yusuke honestly wanted to whine at the injustice of it all, because less sweet and more touching of a different sort was what he needed right now. Sweetheart, light of my life, I need you to listen right now. Another languid kiss was pressed on his mouth, and he whined into it and twisted away. Forget decorum and dignity. His body was demanding that Akira would deny him what he needed, and then at least, we aren't having sex, Akira could, while caressing his hip bones. You're not ready for that, and we both know that. But there are other options we can take. This is a really interesting...
This is really fluffy.
Yeah, this is a really interesting fic. I'm really enjoying it. Go ahead.
Okay. Yusuke hadn't seen much porn, willingly at least, but even he recognized the telltale pop of lube opening. What? There was a swishing noise, and Yusuke racked his brain, wondering what it might be. Akira hummed over it, an obvious attempt to set him at ease. Is this alright? Is what alright? Akira lightly laughed. Is what alright? And then paused. Yusuke did not like that pause at all. The pause meant he messed up. That pause meant, somehow, he had disappointed Akira. I'm sorry. You don't even know what you're apologizing for, you silly. He trailed off to then press a light kiss to Yusuke's cheek. Odd, it almost felt like, Yusuke, do you trust me? This again? Of course I do. And that was all the warning he received before he was rolled on top of his boyfriend, erection freed from his pants, and now sandwiched between curiously slick thighs. Seems those deft hands weren't only good at stealing treasure. As though sensing Yusuke's discombobulation, Akira chose that exact moment to flex his rather impressive thigh muscles.
Nice.
And just like that, all rational thought flew from Yusuke's mind, seagulls fleeing from the rising tide. Thankfully, Akira was there to guide him with two hands on his rear, guiding his body into thrusting between his boyfriend's thighs. So that's what the lube was for. I didn't think you were ready for sex, Akira managed between quiet moans, but this is as close as I could get. Briefly, Yusuke was struck with a brand new warmth and appreciation for his wonderful boyfriend. Who else would not only deny themselves sex, but go as so far as to make their partner feel comfortable? That wave of adoration was quickly swallowed up by the need to thrust to dominate. A selfish part of Yusuke wished just then he could just see Akira then, looking beautiful in his collar and knowing that such a sight was for him alone. The pressure, though, the warmth. Yusuke gave a small whimper of surrender as he awkwardly thrust between his boyfriend's thighs. The pressure of firm muscle and wonderful feeling of intimacy. It would likely be clumsy and humiliating later, but Yusuke couldn't help but continue thrusting into Akira's legs. His hips actually jerked when an erratic hand reached up and gripped his hip. It was so embarrassing, but then Akira gave a tiny moan and brought the hand not curling on his hips to mash his face into his lover's neck. It seemed a beautiful opportunity to snuck and nip right below the collar, all without his hips stuttering once. You feel that, love? Akira panted and even whined a little, and Yusuke wished he could paint sounds if only to preserve that sound forever, and he squirmed. I'm all yours, Yusuke. All yours. No one. I'm all yours. And something about hearing Akira, hearing Joker say something so submissive was enough to tip him over the edge. The humiliation from that would later require many cuddles and words of reassurance that it was perfectly normal to get off on feeling powerful. To his credit, Akira only laughed a little before promptly proceeding to introduce the concept of a blowjob as well.
Ooh, damn.
As he painted harshly onto Akira's neck, color once again filled his world. The first thing he saw was his boyfriend, flushed and disheveled. His hair was a mess, his eyes were glazed. He would have killed for a sketch pad right then.
The second thing he noticed was the awkward way Akira had hiked his boxers up and the various fluids. I am so sorry. What are you sorry for? Gods, Akira's voice oozed with sexuality. I know you enjoyed it, and I didn't exactly. And here, the brave leader of the Phantom Thieves wanted criminal actually shifted awkwardly in his sheets. It was only then Yusuke noticed the dampness of where Akira had hiked his boxers up. Oh. Yeah. Oh. Now help me out of these before I get all sticky. Sticky? I am so... Akira shuffled out of the strained boxers and shirt. Even after everything, Yusuke still flushed like a schoolgirl, seeing his lover nude. It was completely different from the objective way he was taught to look at nude. A pair of athletic shorts smacked his face. You too, unless you want to decide what dried up cum tastes like.
What?
Lest you be so vulgar. Despite saying that, Yusuke was quick to strip out of this dirty clothing and change to his gym uniform. He also did not miss Akira's heavy gaze as he stretched his arms up to put on his shirt. Once they were both dressed, Akira fought back onto the futon and gave an ominous creak. As it gave an ominous creak, Yusuke couldn't help but ponder aloud. So what comes next? Well, first, we're going to cuddle, and then after a quick nap, I'll suck you off. Nice! Dude, things to look forward to. Even staring at the curly hair, even if he was still blinded, Yusuke knew his boyfriend was smirking his Joker smirk. Sleep was sounding more and more tempting the longer they stayed on the bed, and then we'll reevaluate if you're ready for sex. Deal? Yusuke leaned forward just enough to press a kiss on the collar, still firmly tied around the beautiful neck. Deal.
You know, you read a line and you said taste cum and it said feel dried cum, and I was like, what?
Sorry.
It's just funny. I'm like, what?
I inserted words. I apologize. That was a long fic.
Oh yeah, I'm tired of talking.
Jesus Christ, that was a long fic. But what did you think of it?
It was like, I liked it because it was more of, there was smut, yeah, but it was more fluff than anything. It was like the first time thing. I'm
going to say it is very realistic, and I will talk to you after the cameras are off, because that is not a conversation to be had on YouTube. But that was really well done. Did you ever read the chapter of Tokyo Ghoul that everyone complained about with Toka and Kaneki?
Nope.
Well, it's charming, but it's also very awkward, and they really nailed the awkwardness of a first time trying to attempt sexual stuff. I know that feel all too well on both sides, and that was really well done the way that they did it. I would say grammatically there were some errors, but it was still very well done. And
when you write a 5,000 word fic.
5,000 words start to bleed together. I was noticing it was more and more errors as you got to the end, so I'm like, they must have gotten so tired writing this. But I thought it was really good. Mm-hmm. So, any parting words before we go with the intros?
Intros, you mean outros?
Outros. May, give me one final word.
One final word.
So thank you guys so much for watching another edition of Fanfiction Theater. As always, I'm Greg. That has been May. So until next time, we'll catch you guys later. Tune in next week as we're going to jump into fanfictions about the latest Steam sensation, Dream Daddy. And they're going to be... one of them's a reader insert. Another one's with a dad Sona. So it's practically a reader insert. So it's with our two best boys of Dream Daddy. So until then, we'll catch you guys later. You all have a good night. See you later.